All right, folks, it's time to dive into a crucial discussion, one that's been a long time coming, about the current situation in Cleveland. If you've been keeping an eye on the latest headlines from that organization and tracking the hints that keep popping up in press conferences, media reports, and off-season chatter, you can sense that something is definitely stirring within the Browns facility. And it's not the type of brewing that sparks any kind of optimism or excitement. This brewing situation really makes you wonder if the folks in charge of this franchise truly grasp the value of what they have on their hands. At this moment in the offseason, as we head into a pivotal developmental year for one of the most gifted and heavily analyzed quarterbacks in the league, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns seems unable to confidently step up to the microphone and assert, without hesitation or ambiguity, that Shedeur Sanders is his starting quarterback. Let it land. Take a moment to let it settle in your chest. A quarterback who wrapped up the season with more victories than any other passer on that team. A quarterback who brought home consecutive wins just when this franchise needed them the most. A quarterback who took the reins as the starter when it counted and guided this team through the crucial moments. Here we are in the offseason, a crucial time for building, where a head coach's public confidence in his quarterback should resonate as the strongest and most unmistakable message throughout the organization. Todd Monken just can't seem to dig deep and deliver it. I can't believe we're actually talking about this. I really can't. However, we definitely are. The longer this drags on, the more crucial it is to identify it for what it truly is. That's exactly what we're diving into today. Hey everyone, glad to have you back on the channel. Get ready because this one dives in deep. Let's kick things off by looking at the complete picture, as understanding the context is crucial in a situation this complex. Todd Monken's hiring was a calculated decision. He wasn't a last-minute pick forced by a team scrambling for choices. He was brought in with purpose, intentionally, and with what we were led to believe was a strong philosophical match with the path the franchise aimed to pursue. He was selected due to his strong reputation as an offensive strategist, a developer of quarterbacks, and for possessing the strategic insight and communication abilities essential for the head coach role that this organization requires during its current rebuilding phase. Here are the credentials listed on the resume. That's the pitch that came out when the hire was revealed. Browns fans, who have faced more heartbreak than almost any other fan base in the history of professional football, dared to embrace a feeling they've learned to tread lightly around. Fingers crossed, this could genuinely be a game-changer hope. In those initial exchanges, there was definitely a spark of optimism. The interaction between Monkin and Shedeur Sanders, analyzed and shared by every football media outlet covering this team, conveyed a message that transcended mere words. There was real warmth, real respect, that kind of unspoken connection between a coach and a player that indicates a true relationship instead of just a professional setup. Those who witnessed that moment truly experienced it. It had significance. The analysis indicated that a key element in any effective quarterback-coach relationship is the authentic mutual trust they have in one another, and that was clearly evident. It indicated that this might be effective. This time, it seems like Cleveland could actually nail the quarterback situation. Then the press conferences kicked off, and the rhetoric began to flow. The reluctance to make commitments emerged, and the hope that had been meticulously built and was historically delicate started to crumble. Todd Monken's public stance on Shedeur Sanders has a specific issue that can be laid out in the simplest terms possible. When a head coach opts not to reveal his starting quarterback after an offseason where that quarterback showcased some of the most impressive performances in the team's recent history, it definitely sends a strong message. That's not the vibe the coach is looking to convey. It's not the cautious, detailed, and straightforward approach that the coaching staff often aims for when discussing competition. The message that truly resonates in the locker room, the front office, the fan base, and the wider NFL community observing how Cleveland navigates this situation. We're uncertain about the message. The takeaway is that he may not be the one. There's a situation where another player could step in and take these reps come September. Once that message hits the scene, once it's woven into the story of a young quarterback facing more scrutiny than nearly any player in the league, it becomes nearly impossible to completely retract. It thrives in the coverage. The answers are found in the inquiries at the upcoming press conference. It resonates in the minds of every front office across the league and every agent keeping an eye on how Cleveland handles its most valuable player. In the NFL, hesitation can be a game changer. It's more than just a coaching philosophy, a personal preference, or a way to handle the media. For a young quarterback in his second year, uncertainty from his head coach can really hurt his development. His standing in the building takes a hit, which affects the confidence of teammates who need to trust him to perform at their best. It also harms the recruiting pitch when the Browns attempt to lure free agents who are curious about whether this franchise has a solid plan at quarterback. Every moment of uncertainty is a missed opportunity. And at this point, Todd Monken is using resources that this franchise simply can't afford to waste. Let's take a moment to be fair, even when it feels a bit uncomfortable. We should consider that this situation might not be entirely Monken's decision. Todd Monken has some higher-ups to answer to. His name is Andrew Berry. He reports to Jimmy Haslam. He reports to the team president and the hierarchy above him that ultimately approves every payment and makes all the final decisions. I've got to bring up the question that the Cleveland media seems hesitant to tackle openly. What portion of this competition narrative is being driven by Monken himself, and how much is trickling down from the higher-ups in the organization? If the front office is the root of this uncertainty, and the individuals at the top of the Browns organization are the ones fostering an environment where their head coach can't even publicly back his starting quarterback, then we're facing a much bigger issue than just a coach having trouble with press conference responses. Our organization lacks a clear philosophy for nurturing young talent. Our front office seems more focused on playing it safe with institutional bets, rather than fully embracing a clear vision. In the NFL, there's a prevailing atmosphere of caution and qualification that often feels like it's synonymous with a culture of failure. I really hope the Browns allow Todd Monken the freedom to shape this offense around Shedeur Sanders, free from any outside interference. I really hope that the discussions taking place behind the scenes are stronger and more focused than what we're hearing in front of the cameras. I really hope there's a strategy in place that the public isn't fully aware of, because if this uncertainty truly reflects the organization's mindset about the quarterback situation, then Browns fans should be genuinely worried as we head into 2026. Let's tackle the competition narrative head-on, as it's at the core of everything that's going wrong with the management of this situation. And it's really getting under my skin. Shedeur Sanders is entering his second year as a quarterback. Entering his second year in the NFL, we're still in the offseason, and the conversation is all about whether he'll need to fight for his starting position. The conversation continues about him needing to show what he's made of. It's as if the evidence isn't clear on the tape, as if those consecutive victories didn't actually occur, as if the Pro Bowl nod was just a mistake that the league is secretly reconsidering. It's crucial to frame this in a comparative context, as the comparison holds significant weight and highlights the real double standard at play. What happened to the competition storyline for Drake May in New England? What was the situation for Jaden Daniels as he entered his second year? Where is this energy being directed towards every second-year quarterback across the league? I can point out the areas where it's not being applied consistently. The level of scrutiny and public uncertainty isn't being applied with the same intensity to quarterbacks in markets that have less complex organizational histories or different backgrounds compared to Shedeur Sanders. The standard must remain consistent. If we're going to set a standard for Shedeur Sanders before he gets the public backing of his head coach, that standard has to be clearly defined and uniformly enforced throughout the league. At this moment, it definitely isn't. Currently, Shedeur Sanders seems to set a standard that is flexible, unlike the benchmarks for other quarterbacks in similar circumstances. That inconsistency is definitely intentional. It's definitely a trend. Patterns reveal insights about the systems that create them, insights that single incidents can never completely uncover. Other franchises don't subject their second-year starters to this intense challenge every offseason. They make a commitment, they grow together, they construct a strong foundation, and they declare to their quarterback, both boldly and clearly, that he is their chosen leader. Then they go all in during the offseason, bringing in the right weapons and protection he needs to showcase his skills on the field. They put their money into the idea. More often than not, that investment really pays off, because developing a quarterback goes beyond just physical reps and watching film. It's all about having that mental assurance. It's all about having the complete confidence of the organization that you are the cornerstone this team is rallying around. That confidence transforms a quarterback's game. It alters his approach to handling errors. It impacts his ability to rebound from challenges. It transforms the entire landscape. The Cleveland Browns, through their public indecision, are clearly keeping it from their fans. Let's dive into the financial aspect of this situation, as it's the part of the narrative that often flies under the radar and carries the most significant long-term consequences of everything we've covered up to this point. Shedeur Sanders is set to be in line for a contract extension, and while it may not happen right away, it's coming up quicker than most people realize. The timeline for NFL contract negotiations involving quarterbacks stepping into starting roles is tightly packed. The discussions, the strategic positioning, and the leverage that shape the outcome of those negotiations kick off right now. The action kicks off in the offseason. They start with how they frame their responses in press conferences. It all starts with the signals from the organization regarding their valuation, commitment level, and confidence in this being their long-term solution at the position. Think about how the competition storyline impacts that leverage equation. If the organization consistently hints that Shedeur Sanders isn't guaranteed the starting position each offseason, if every training camp is framed as a battle for the spot, and if the head coach avoids making a firm commitment to him, how does that impact his market value when discussions about an extension come around? It generates a record of uncertainty within the organization. The documented public record shows a clear pattern of the franchise not fully backing its own quarterback, and organizations rely on that documentation. It's highlighted in negotiation discussions. They leverage this to claim that the market rate for their quarterback ought to be less than what his actual performance would warrant, especially since they have competitive discussions documented. Press conference transcripts have captured this information. Their months of hesitation in naming him the clear starter suggest a lack of complete confidence from the organization. That's the way suppression operates in NFL contract talks. It doesn't need to be obvious or deliberate to have genuine effects. The way public messaging is crafted influences the power dynamics for all those involved. If the Browns are creating that trend, whether intentionally or not, they are impacting Shedeur Sanders financially in ways that will resonate well beyond the 2026 season. Once he and his team grasp that completely, the bond between the player and the organization reaches a point that's tough to reverse. Emmanuel Ayo shared his thoughts on the situation, and his insights warrant significant consideration as they delve into an aspect of the story that much of the analysis has skirted around without confronting head-on. He sent a strong message to Todd Monken. Monkin can't let his first head coaching chance hinge on whether Shedeur Sanders makes that next developmental leap, Ayo contended. The paths of the coach and the quarterback are now intertwined in ways neither of them anticipated, yet both must find a way to manage together. The connection brings about tensions that, if not handled properly, can undermine the relationship from within before it has the opportunity to develop into what it should be. Here's the hard truth I'm about to lay down for you. Todd Monken's trajectory in Cleveland, and possibly his prospects as a head coach elsewhere if things don't go well here, will hinge on the developments surrounding Shedeur Sanders. That's it. No credentials. If Sanders evolves into the franchise quarterback that his skills indicate he can be, Monken will deserve the recognition. He emerges as the coach who tapped into the potential, nurtured the talent, and established the winning culture. His stock is on the rise. As his choices grow, his position becomes more secure. If Sanders doesn't progress, if the season takes a turn for the worse, if the bond between coach and quarterback crumbles under the pressure of public skepticism and internal chaos, Monken will bear the responsibility. He's the head coach who failed to maximize the potential of a once-in-a-generation young quarterback. His value is dropping, his options contract. His time in Cleveland wraps up in a way that makes landing the next head coaching job significantly more challenging. Considering the straightforward situation, with both the coach's career and the quarterback's success intertwined, why add any unnecessary hurdles? Why would you plant seeds of doubt in the public narrative that you'll later need to tackle in the locker room? Why hand the critics and doubters the tools they need to complicate things for everyone involved? The chatter about competition doesn't elevate Shedeur Sanders' game. It fails to instill real urgency in a player who has already shown plenty of motivation. It doesn't really enhance his preparation or boost his work ethic. It really complicates things for him, and in the end, for Monkin as well. Todd Monken better not screw this up. I'm being straightforward here because this moment demands it. He's got a secret weapon in Shedeur Sanders, a young quarterback who's already shown he can clinch victories at the pro level. We're talking about genuine NFL action here, not college games or spring practice highlights. This is the real deal, with high stakes and intense pressure. That's a tough one to track down. Developing is definitely a challenge. Many head coaches go through their whole careers without ever experiencing it. Monkin is in control this year, with the groundwork set and the path clearly heading in the right direction. Don't drop the ball. Avoid adding unnecessary friction. Don't allow the pressure from the organization to hedge, cover institutional bets, or manage downside risk to lead to a public stance that harms the very asset you're meant to be cultivating. I want to get straight to the point about another issue that keeps coming up in the discussions and reports surrounding the situation, and it needs to be tackled head-on without any sugarcoating. The ongoing mentions of Deshaun Watson, the revisiting of 2020, and the hints, both subtle and not so subtle, that the organization's careful approach to the quarterback position in Cleveland is linked to or validated by factors unrelated to Shedeur Sanders as an individual, player, or professional. This has to come to an end. Not because the history isn't there, it's real. It went down. This organization paid a hefty price, financially, in draft picks, in its reputation, and in years of lost competitive play, all stemming from a disastrous choice they made themselves. Everything mentioned is well documented and absolutely genuine. However, Shedeur Sanders chose not to make that decision. Shedeur Sanders isn't that kind of scenario. Shedeur Sanders stepped into Cleveland ready to make his mark, showcasing his skills and deserving to be judged solely on his abilities, performance, and character. The previous quarterback in Cleveland may have caused a disaster, but that doesn't justify or explain the organization's reluctance regarding a completely different player who has no connection to that past situation other than the position he holds. It's now the year 2026. The discussion should focus on 2026, highlighting Shedeur's achievements, his potential, and what the organization must do to foster his growth and make the most of the significant investment they made in choosing him. Bringing up historical details that don't relate to the current player isn't true analysis. It's just noise. It's the type of noise that fuels the skeptic's story while neglecting the actual truth.